there is always something that you need to do better. I talked about this today with my men on the call, and I was like, man, no matter what, just look deeper at everything you do. We used a bullshit example of brushing your teeth. Could I have done that for 15 seconds longer? Don't think about it like not having bad breath so she'll want to kiss you. Just, who can I be? How can I be better? Are my teeth actually clean today?
People getting divorced,
tearing their families apart, coasting through marriage,
or fighting their way through it. I'm Cass.
And I'm Kathryn.
We came back from the depths of hell to save our abusive, our toxic marriage.
We're MorrowMarriage.
Let's flip divorce statistics with the new marriage.
All right, let's go to what women mean when they say no to sex. We've all heard it. I'm too tired.
I have a headache.
I have a headache. Kathryn, your go-to was?
I think I'm asexual.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So I think it's I think this is gonna be a fun conversation because we don't really talk about this, but I teach men a lot of this stuff. So let's get into it.
Yeah, see where this goes.
Woo, are you excited? Okay, so I know for a fact, for obvious reasons, she might be too tired, right?
Yeah, why don't we talk about those reasons real quick, just to validate the women that are watching this.
Yeah,
right
let's do that, sure.
So some of the reasons I'd be too tired are 2-year-old in the middle of the night, 2-year-old at 5 o'clock in the morning, 4-year-olds at 6 o'clock in the morning, running after them all day long, emotionally exhausted because we have twin 4-year-old girls and a 2-year-old boy, and they have bigger personalities than we do.
2 tornadoes and a hurricane.
Two tornadoes and a hurricane
Yep.
and a donkey and 17,000 tickets. And then also just like every day outside of the children. I think the biggest thing with the tired though is the children and the things that go along with the children, like picking up after the children, making sure the kitchen stays tidy, which, don't judge me, our kitchen is not tidy.
Well, I think there's so much more to this too. I mean, if you think about what the mental load is, and then dealing with their emotions and all that stuff too, like.
And a lot of women also work. So I run businesses. I work. I don't work a lot. I don't work a full 8-hour day, but I work 3 full 8-hour days with the children because they don't sleep.
And so I think it's just really important because if you truth be told, of course you could be too tired. And we're going to talk about how we can combat a lot of this stuff. But obviously, like, there's one reason why we talked about fitness and family the other day, right? Like
energy levels.
Energy levels is one massive thing there. But all right, now we hear things like I have a headache. You know, when I'm not feeling well, my period. Like these kinds of things, I really don't think are real things. I think that there's a bigger, deeper message. And so, like, if you start to combat, like, I'm too tired, and men try to get involved, well, they help so that they can, you know, get laid.
Right.
You know, and I used to be the king of, hey, baby, I did what this. You wanna? You know, like, it doesn't work that way, guys. And so I think there is some truth to that. So say you're stepping in, you have zero expectation, and you don't do it like, I can't make a move on you before bed anymore. It's not like it was in the beginning. She's tired. It's bedtime now, right? And so
we have to plan it at bedtime that we go to bed with enough time.
Yeah, we organize it a little. Yeah. So here's the thing. So say you combat that, but now you're still getting these other reasons. I'm going to call them excuses. You know, I'm not saying you can't have a headache and just totally not be in the mood, but I typically think that we as men need to show up a whole lot more. I don't even know if you know, I teach this rejection ladder thing. You know? Okay.
I've seen it.
So, you know, you're working your way up this ladder because you're doing things that are inspiring a lot more of a connection. I think that men, when you're hearing lines like that, like literally, you're actually, when you're saying no, you're literally telling us you're just trying to get laid now. Like, you haven't even talked to me. You haven't listened to me. When you told me you asked me how my day was, you piggybacked off that and told all about your day. Remember, I used to just completely like bulldoze over anything you said and just be like, oh, this happened to me though. Yes. Right? Yeah. Like, so of course she's got a headache, man. You've been talking too much. So I think there are people that are asexual. I think that we're very pleasantly surprised that you're not, like you thought.
And let's touch on that just for a quick second. So after you have a baby, I think that men don't realize that it's not just your physical body that has to go back to normal. Hormonally, you are not the same. And even if you're not, so in the last episode, I talked about the emotional roller coaster. And even when I was pregnant, I was not an emotional roller coaster coming on IVF afterwards. I've never been a real emotional roller coaster, but that doesn't mean that it's not more difficult for me or for women that are listening. So after you have a baby, your hormones are still they're out of whack and they're trying to get back into order. Just because you're not acting on the way you feel, you're not crying all the time, you're not snapping all the time, it doesn't mean that you're not having a hard time with your just everything that's going on. So after you have a baby, your libido can be a lot lower because of hormonal things, because you're tired. Sleep is a huge part of it. So if you're breastfeeding a newborn, I once had a doctor tell me, side note, that breastfeeding was like being in menopause because it affects you hormonally, so you can't get back to where like your normal baseline when you're breastfeeding because it just inhibits you. In order to be producing milk, there's the hormones that are flowing through your body are keeping you from getting back to that normal baseline woman that you were before you got pregnant. So I thought I was asexual. There's not enough education out there for women. We don't know what to expect after having a baby.
I just want to interrupt because I want to stick with that for a second, though, the asexual thing, because I want to talk about hormones after.
Yeah.
The asexual thing, if I'm being real, you were just grossed out by me. Years of not feeling like you had a partner, years of not being happy.
That compounded it.
Yeah.
So I think that when you have, so yes, I thought I might be asexual, and I thought, yes, I was grossed out. And physically, I was never grossed out by him, but because of the way he acted, it made me feel grossed out. So on top of the fact that between 2018 and 2022, I was always breastfeeding or pregnant or doing IVF. And so on top of that is where it became a problem. So after we had Riddick, it wasn't nearly as much of a problem as it was after we had the girls because I was so emotionally connected to you, but it was still difficult. I didn't think I was asexual anymore, but I can see why I thought I was asexual with our lack of connection on top of the fact that my hormones were all out of whack.
That's right.
So so it's two layers there.
I think so. But let's go deeper into hormones then for a second, because what I've seen with the men, with the wives that are happy and connected again, you just talked about it, the emotional connection again, right? We're emotionally connected. We have intimacy on all levels, not just trying to, fuck, right? And at the end of the day, hormones can be an issue. However, women want to do more. Get it checked out, for example. But see, right now, like if I'm talking to a man, he's like,
if you're connected to your husband, you're motivated to get your hormones checked out, to figure out if there's something that you can do. If you're not connected to your husband, you're just like, oh, well, this is a really good excuse.
Hormones.
It's a really good excuse to not have to do it with my husband because he's treating me like crap or like I just don't feel well and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so the amount of men that get so upset because, well, she missed her appointment, or she said she was going to go to the doctor, or she was supposed to take this, whatever, from the natural path. And it's like, well, dude, what's the conversation like? Are you even laughing anymore? If you think about back to when you were dating, guys, like the reason you were hot and heavy, there was all kinds of things that you think, well, I think people make excuses. I can't with kids. I'm too tired because I have kids. Versus if you start to stack all of these different levels of intimacy, partnership, empathy for your partner, compassion, then you start to feel connected. And then we have one other layer there, of course, like if you're always having to do a job, right? Like Kathryn had to do a job. For a lot of the job sex was original intent, we're gonna have sex every day.
I want to connect with you, and I want to be a good partner, all kinds of things.
And then gradually was replaced, at least in our marriage, with a lot of fear. I have to do it or I'm gonna get in trouble if I don't. Well, of course, headaches started to come around a lot more. Like there's literally all that puking of feelings that we talked about in the last episode of why don't you want me? I'm pouting, I'm frustrated, how many talks do we have? And then of course all the lashing out or anger or rage if you're talking about me. So there's zero motivation to achieve, let's say, a fitness goal to have more energy, to get your hormones checked out. Go to the doctor
to get hormones checked.
Yeah.
To do anything.
That's right. So I think, man, you need to understand, she could be saying, I'm too tired and be tired. You gave some practical examples of why that is. Same with the hormones. It could be a really real thing. But I think, men, if you're listening, you need to first focus on who are you showing up as at home? What kind of man are you being with your wife in front of your children? Because she's going to see that and be maybe pushed away. You would not be happy with me and want me. We could, the whole sex as a weapon thing, right? It can be perfect all day long. We talked about this in one of the other episodes. But man, if I had that face and didn't communicate something correctly.
The sneer face?
The resting sneer face, yeah. and which I still have. It's my curious face too. So if I ruined everything, if I was too snippy, you know, and we're way past that now with the kids. Like if we struggle, like we're just in there with each other. But like that's probably the hardest part for us.
But your point is, it doesn't matter if he turned me on all day. If he does something that just really turns me off, then I'm sorry, it's done. And it's not like, I don't want anyone listening to think that, you know, he can make one mistake and then all of a sudden sex is off the table. That's not it.
No, that's because this is all compounded. This is going on, all this stuff.
Yeah, that's right. And it's the idea that at the end of the day, if you do something that is really detrimental to your relationship, your connection, your relationship with your kids, it can just make that connected atmosphere go away. And if that connected atmosphere goes away, sex is likely not going to happen. And you know the saying, it takes 7 positives to remove one negative.
Yeah.
So that's a really good parallel here, that you can do everything right all day long. Let's say that's the 7 good things that you did, but then that one negative is enough to wipe away all those 7 positives. We didn't make that up.
Yeah, that's not a sex
real.
thing. That's an everyday thing.
That's an everything.
Yeah.
That's an everyday thing.
7 touch points, right?
That's right.
So I think when you hear your wife, or as a wife, when you're giving the reason that you don't want sex, you know, I know that a lot of you get to the point where it's just like, no. You just flat out no. Or completely fuck off. Like, we're seeing lots of that. But when you get to the point where this reason is coming out, you need to start being a little bit more real with yourself. I'm not necessarily saying even with your partner, right? You didn't know how to process it. Let's use just like the hormone example. You're going with asexual, and I was getting frustrated. I'm like, what? You know, like do something about that then. Figure that out. Instead of looking within, how could I start showing up to bring you back, to want to go back to at least wanting to connect, you know, instead of going right for the whatever, crazy, wild adventures, you know? Connect. And then you can start to look at more and the other reasons. But if she doesn't even want to have a conversation with you, doesn't return your text messages, and this would be vice versa, then of course you're missing other levels of intimacy. So you can't necessarily trust the reasons that you're getting, especially if you don't know how to communicate and you guys haven't pinpointed it. When you felt like, well, you said it was gross. I can't remember what your exact words were, because that's what I heard.
Repulsive is the word.
Repulsive, there we go. And so
emotionally, and I never actually found you repulsive. It was who you were being was repulsive because it was so nasty.
Yeah, that's how, I'm sure you guys have all dated somebody before, or maybe it's with your spouse, where the beauty fades if
they become ugly to you, even though they could be the most beautiful person in the world, and they just become ugly. You don't see them anymore. Mm-hmm. You just see the behaviors and the negativity that's coming out of them, which isn't truly them. The negative that comes out of us when we're put in these situations doesn't mean that that's us. That wasn't you. That was what was showing, but we needed to get underneath. And, you know, get underneath. Wow. My mind went somewhere else. I want to say one last thing. So the reasons. So I'm going to talk to the men because you've been talking to the men. So if your wife says she has a headache, she might have a headache. It's probably true she has a headache. And because she's not motivated to be with you in an intimate way, that headache is going to be the factor that's going to allow her to say no. However, in our relationship, he knows if I say that I'm feeling really sick, that I have a headache, he knows that that's actually, I really, I don't want to be intimate if I'm feeling that way, because I have headaches all the time. I just don't say it because it's not enough to make me not want to be with my husband. I feel sick very often. I got sick last year and I've gone through so many different tests and there's nausea. I don't say it every day because I don't want him to think that I don't want to be with him. If I do say it, he knows, okay, she's really feeling
you're
bad.
You're down
like,
today.
what can I do for her to make her feel better? So when you get to that point where you know that you can actually trust that if my wife says she has a headache, it's not an excuse. She actually has a headache and she just wants support. If it's every day, if your wife has a headache every day, then that probably is what he's saying. Like, look within and see, are you connecting with your wife? And wives, the same thing. Are you connecting with your husband? If there's all these excuses, yes, they're real. You probably have a headache. You probably are tired. I have lots of headaches. I'm tired all the time. I told you about the 2-year-old. But if I didn't connect with my husband because of the 2-year-old, we literally wouldn't even have a 2-year-old.
That's right.
It'd be impossible to have children because you know how you make children, right? So, do you guys get what I'm trying to say? I wish we could talk back to them right now.
Yeah, well, you guys can.
You can DM us.
Yeah, you got to DM us. But listen, just before we end this, I just want to say this. There is always something that you need to do better. I talked about this today with my men on the call. And I was like, man, no matter what, just look deeper at everything you do. We used a bullshit example of brushing your teeth. Could I have done that for 15 seconds longer? Don't think about it like not having bad breath so she'll want to kiss you. Just, who can I be? How can I be better? Are my teeth actually clean today? I know that's a stupid example, but that's how silly you need to start being with this if you want to start getting a hold of some of the bigger things, like the truth around sex.
And that's not actually a bad example, because some of you, I know I work with a lot of women, some husbands could stand to brush their teeth for 15 seconds longer, or
Actually,
use a little extra soap in the shower, and wives don't know how to present it to their husbands because they don't want to offend them, but then they don't want to be with them because they smell.
I have to teach this in my course. Like,
It's beyond.
You have to
this
teach
is a whole
men
other.
to get
We should
clean.
do it. We should do the
Let's do that. Let's do another episode.
On
Next one
hygiene.
on hygiene. Yeah, and talk about some of the areas that you don't even realize that you're missing, and it's messing up your intimacy in your marriage. Okay, let's go.